It is time for environment. Yes, and on luncheon date today, we revisit the last major climate event of the year, COP16 of the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification that took place in Riyadh. After 2 weeks of intense negotiation on how to tackle land degradation, desertification, and drought, the largest and most inclusive United Nations Land Conference wrapped up in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, with a commitment to reclaim 1.5 billion hectares of land by 2030. Aisha Mama interviewed leaders of civil society organizations who played an active role to negotiate funds for their activities and put together the following package for the program.
For close to 2 weeks, the Boulevard City Center in Riyadh, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, played host to nearly 200 countries, convening at the last major climate event of the year, the 16th Conference of the Parties COP16 to the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification UNCCD. Delegates committed to prioritize land restoration and drought resilience in national policies and international cooperation as an essential strategy for food security and climate adaptation. The civil society, more than ever before, played a crucial role during negotiations.
My name is Sunday Geoffrey. I'm the Executive Coordinator of Support to Mighty Cameroon and JLF Yaoundé chapter. My presentation focused on the role of local communities in enhancing restoration initiatives. And this is very important because restoration is about the communities, the pastoralists, the smallholder farmers, the fisher folks, and even the sand miners who depend on water and who depend on land for their survival. So at this conference, the discussions are focused on how we can scale restoration initiatives. I highlighted the work that we are doing with these local communities and the critical role that these communities are playing in this restoration process. And most importantly, I highlighted the needs of these communities and the needs for international partners, for industrialized countries, to invest more in enhancing not just ecological restoration, but enhancing the livelihoods of these communities. Because their lives depend on land, their lives depend on water. And these water resources are degrading, land resources are degrading. Increasing poverty within these communities and increasing conflicts between different land and water user groups.
Like a civil society organization during COP16, what is your role? What are you discussing? To whom are you talking? And what do you want to achieve when you are doing all those discussions?
I'm Cecile Jebet. I'm from Cameroon. I'm coordinating a regional network of women. We call it the African Women Network for Community Management of Forests, the FACOF. I'm coordinating the civil society coalition for the Congo Basin. Why am I here? That's a great question. I'm here because it's COP on desertification, and this is a thematic that interests us, and we are working on that. As the FACOF, we are involved in restoration, and I think it's a good platform to be here and share what we're doing, look for partnership, see what others are doing and see what you can gain, like exchange experiences, but also looking for partners to support our actions back home. I have also this role of coordinating the civil society of Congo Basin, those who are involved in forest and environment sectors. And for that, I think I have to learn from what is going on here so that when I'm back home, I can share with them. And it gives me ideas also how to channel our intervention, our actions. But I also see that it's important for us to be at the negotiation table. Because if you are absent, then they decide for you, you don't know what is going on, and then you will be impacted anyhow. So I'm trying to combine my personal objective, but also the objective of the civil society and the objective of our government, because unfortunately, we still have to work very hard to get our government involved us directly. The civil society should be a support for the government. But so far in the Congo Basin, that's not what we are seeing. That anyway, we are in that movement, in that dynamics, and I think things will improve gradually. And the last is I'm part of women movement, national, regional, and globally. In those movements, in those platforms, I have also roles to play. For example, women in biodiversity. I have to be there, women in gender restoration, gender natural resource management, gender desertification. So I have to be there to follow what is going on, and we have our call on action, and we have to see if parties are sensitive to that, responsive, and we have to negotiate with them to push. So I'm also involved in those movements with colleagues from other continents.
The more than $12 billion pledged at COP16 is to tackle desertification, land degradation and drought around the world, especially for the most vulnerable countries. Funding was at the center of most dialogues and negotiations. This was the focal point for civil society organizations from the Central African sub-region, highly representing young people, women, and indigenous communities.
I am Paul Maimuna Omaru, the Women Coordinator of Sura Mama. Sura Mama is a Mbororo community organization from the pastoralist area. I am also the focal point for biodiversity for the network of Repaliac, which is a Central African network for the indigenous people and local communities for the sustainable management of forest ecosystem in Central Africa. I work closely with the working group of COMIFAC, GTBAC, working group on biodiversity, and specifically at the local level, I work with women movement. Our women are part of the people that the desertification is touching. I am happy to be taking part in this UNCCD conference this year, COP16, here in Riyadh. It has permitted me to get other strategies that we can use in our community, because as indigenous women, we are the people that are close to nature. Our women are pastoralists. So as the COP says, our land, our future, their daily life depends on their lands. So some of the challenges they have, their land is reducing because of the geographic growth of the population. Also, the effect of climate change also is reducing their land. So they have a lot of changes. That is why you find a lot of migration. The youth, the women, the widows, the single mothers, they migrate to other localities.
Among the main agreements reached at COP16 were the creation of a caucus for indigenous peoples and a caucus for local communities to ensure that their unique perspectives and challenges are adequately represented to reflect their daily realities.
Sunday Geoffrey, I'm the Executive Coordinator of Support to Mighty Cameroon. Support to Mighty Cameroon was established in 2018 as a development and environmental association, and to date we intervene in two regions, the Northwest and the Center regions. But the core of our restoration activity is being implemented in Gokutunje division in the Northwest region of Cameroon. And here we work with all landscape actors, especially the pastoralists and the smallholder farming communities. So we do project planning, implementation, and monitoring and evaluation with these communities. And what we do exactly is we plan activities around issues of ecosystem restoration, engaging the communities in mass tree planting. And so far we've had 35,000 trees planted. And our tree choices are determined by the needs of the communities, but we make sure that all the trees planted are indigenous to these communities, and that they not only provide environmental benefits, but they also provide economic benefits. They also provide medicinal benefits to these communities. And secondly, we engage the communities in restoring degraded agro-pastoral lands. So we've supported 65 indigenous Mboro women to establish 65 regenerative farms. And from these farms, they're able to feed themselves, they're able to raise money and support their families. And we've seen some of the beneficiaries moving beyond just the regenerative farms, using the proceeds from their farms to start engaging in goat farming.
Some of the solutions that our organization is trying to put in place to maintain their traditional knowledges, their traditional food system, their water system in their communities are also very few. For example, as the Mbororo pastoralists, for the certification, the first aspect is the mobility. The movement of our cattle from one locality to the other allows the other area where grazing have been made to restore it. That is a traditional way. And now we also have modern way of fighting the certification by planting forage fields, creating forage fields. Forage fields help us to eradicate the invasive alien species, to rearrange our pasture, because there are some species that the cattle doesn't consume and it has invaded the grazing zone. So we have trained the Mbororo indigenous women. Each year, each and every woman need to restore at least 1 hectare of land by creating a forage field in that community. Also, another issue is by mixing, bringing in new pastures into the land. So when we bring new pastures, it becomes fresh, it changes the soil fertility in that area, and it helps the population at least to feed their animals.
COP16 was the largest and most inclusive UNCCD COP to date. It attracted more than 20,000 participants, around 3,500 of them from civil society, and featured more than 600 events.
One important thing we have been doing with the local structures that we are creating in these communities is that we are building their capacities and engaging them in the monitoring and evaluation process of these activities, because we feel that we have to be accountable to these communities, and the communities have to know what is happening. They have to understand what progress we are making, so they can actually be able to consistently ensure that community perspective is reflected in the project design and the project impact. And we also integrate technology in our restoration evaluation, because without this you won't actually be able to know if restoration is happening. And amazingly, just recently we collected some data using satellite imagery to do the analysis, and the transformation on this landscape is really laudable. And this is why we feel that it is very important for more young people, for more communities to get engaged in landscape restoration, because beyond the environmental benefit, we are actually witnessing lots of social benefits. We are seeing increasing collaboration between the Mbororo and local populations. We are seeing increasing collaboration between different landscape actors, sand miners, fisher folks, pastoralists, smallholder farmers. And this is actually contributing to the peaceful coexistence within this landscape.
Nations also made significant progress for the future global drought regime, which they intend to complete at COP17 in Mongolia in 2026.
Thank you so much, Aisha Mama, for that recap of the major climate event of the year. That's 2024 COP16, which focused on combating desertification.